we don't give you a job title that says, here's your leadership and now do it. Everybody here pretty much earns it. So, everybody here is encouraged that there's two main ways to really get ahead. You can either be incredible at what you do and show that your skill on a continued basis is proving to be, above or beyond, or you work yourself out of a job, train somebody else to do your job to display that leadership, and then you'll get that next leadership title.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Thanks for tuning in here to Grow Think Tank. Really excited about sharing this with you. And before you run, I have done so many interviews in the last few weeks. I have such an exciting time to share with you that those interviews have been organized into the 12 core principles of fast growth companies. So all you have to do to get that is go to genehammett.com/worksheet. So you can get the 12 principles, and I've been able to go in there and find which episodes will align to each individual episode. When you subscribe to Grow Think Tank, you will find exactly what you need so that you can move forward. And many of them haven't been published yet, depending on when you're hearing this, but you can tune in to the date that means the most to you. You care for your employees, right? You care for what's going on inside them. And you also invest heavily into the development of those employees. I've known for many years that companies that really take a stance to invest heavily into the people have more loyalty from those people. They get more return for that investment, and they create a place that people just don't want to leave from. I've had these theories for a long time, and I talk to a lot of high growth leaders, and I get to do that through this podcast, through my interviews, and through speaking around the world. And I really am fascinated by companies that really invest heavily into their people. So I wanted to find someone that had their finger on the pulse of this, and I found Noah Curran. Noah is the founder of MonkMedia. MonkMedia is one of the fastest growing marketing agencies out there. More specifically, they do a lot in the area of digital media and combining that with artificial intelligence. It's very complex. We talk about it in the interview. But one of my favorite things about this is we talks about the importance of putting other people's needs in front of your own. And as a leader, it makes sense, but do you actually do it? Well, Noah does. And I'm going to share with you the full details in today's interview. He is, just give you some background on the company. They have about 50 employees. They were number 67 on the 2018 Inc. list, growing at an astronomical pace, doing about $12 million in revenue in 2018, continuing that growth. And really, the next step with the company is to broaden their reach into their current audience. So they're going to continue this growth, all because they're investing 6 to 12 months for each employee before they actually put them in the field with customers, because they want to make sure that they get a high ROI out of each employee that comes on board, and that they're ready for those client engagements. And the clients are getting what they deserve. It really is counterintuitive to what most people do in business, and even the way I've run my own businesses at times. So today's a great interview with Noah. Without further ado, here is Noah. Hi, Noah. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Excited to have you here at Grow Think Tank. When I introduced you earlier, I talked a lot about you, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the company. So tell us about MonkMedia.
Yeah, so we were born out of kind of a hybrid of high-end programming, artificial intelligence, machine learning meets the marketing side of digital. And all of those come to a collaboration around scaling and growing businesses. So we've been in business for about 5 years, helping companies grow and scale in the most efficient ways possible through advanced media buying and marketing and advertising. So it's been a pretty crazy ride and phenomenal growth, and done it alongside some really incredible people.
Advanced media buying sounds pretty sophisticated, and then you throw in the AI to it. How long did it take you to come up with this kind of technology that you've been running with?
Well, I'd say it's ever evolving, right? So that's even kind of in the definition of what machine learning is. But the industry moves so fast. It's kind of like computers back in the day when one was as big as your house, and then 2 years later you could carry it around in a backpack. A lot of digital media is the same way. And so, I often equate it to a lot of people can learn how to fly a plane. They can fly. We're here in Dallas. You can learn to fly a plane, maybe to Austin, and there's 50 buttons that they teach you what they do. But if you really want to leverage media buying to the greatest extent, it's kind of like trying to fly a B-52 over the Middle East. There's 1,000 buttons, and if you push one of them wrong, you can very easily eject. And so, while the initial early onset of developing a lot of that technology was something that built over about a year, what that was then was infantile compared to what we have today.
One of the things we were talking about is you have a fairly small team for the size of revenue that your company has, a little over 50 members. Is that about right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
When you think about the keys to success for your fast growth, you heavily invest into the people, which is kind of counterintuitive to what a lot of companies do. They want them to be as productive as right away. Tell me a little bit more about where that comes from.
Yeah, so really early on, I set our mission to be very kind of unique in that we believe that success comes from putting other people's needs above our own. And as the CEO, that was twofold. First, that was for our clients and the people that we work with, and saying, we're going to go way above and beyond what else any other kind of media group would do to try and serve. So, we see ourselves a lot of the time like entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, where we really treat every dollar like it was our own business and we were putting the money into the media buying. And I think that's a big part of it. But, even first and foremost in my business is the people that we have, and how I invest into them matters more than anything else, because ultimately they're the ones that are investing into our clients. And ultimately, I'm here to help them accomplish what their goals are long-term if I'm going to do right by my team and be the kind of leader that I want to be, that can leave the legacy that I want to leave. And so, we started that very early on, and it's not a simple thing that we do. It's when you're talking about data science meets the psychology of creative, it's not simple. And so, we will take most of, like, let's say our data people, for instance, and they'll go through 6 to 12 months before they're ever really put in the field to operate on their own. And that's a pretty heavy investment, especially in the world of digital and media technology. A lot of it is social media based, and those are a younger people group. But what I'll say is, like, the scale of a company is completely dependent upon many times not only the processes and training you have in place, but in the quality of the kind of leaders that you have that are able to then replicate. So to me, it's all about trying to replicate myself. And if I didn't invest into those people, I wouldn't have the leadership structure that we have today that allows them to build their own teams and do the same. So it's a longer process. Like, I think I heard a story back in the day that, like, a guy was doing an example where he had two groups in a big stadium. And on one side, he brought a volunteer up and he would run out of the stadium. He said, you get to run out of the stadium, grab somebody, bring them up to the stage. You get to run out of the stadium, grab somebody, bring them up to the stage. On the other side, he had a guy and he said, you get to go down, grab somebody, bring them up to the stage, and then explain to them that they have the same rules. So they can go down, grab somebody, bring them up to the stage. And at first, to do that, because he didn't tell the whole audience about this, to do that, you watch this other guy on the other side of the stage, and he just looks like he's beating the tar out of the other side because he's got, 20 more people because he's just running. On the other side, this guy is sitting there and explaining the rules, and it goes far slower, but you get 10 minutes in, and this guy's got 10x because everybody's going out and then bringing somebody back in. And so if I'm able to replicate myself amongst my leaders and invest in them, well, it takes a lot more up front. It's a lot more costly. It's kind of counterintuitive because I'm spending a lot of time, effort, energy, money on people. In the end, it's going to make us far more explosive because we've got the right foundation to build against.
I love the analogy there because it really does kind of give you an idea of a different structure. And when you think about this, we were talking last week about, you think about business very differently than in this. You said the word counterintuitive. When you have talked about investing into people, have your peers or anybody in your network thought you were a little bit crazy for this level of investment?
Yeah, quite often. especially when they see like how much it stretches like myself, right? Like you're the CEO of a company and you're still working long days, long nights, and not always just getting to enjoy the fruits of what is a very successful business. And that's because you have to utilize that excess time, especially in the beginning, because I've still got to serve clients, I've still got to serve staff, I've still got to innovate. And so if you are going to invest all of that, you either have to let some big things drop, or it takes way more of yourself to have to give. And so they said, is it really worth it? It's not going to last. Those people aren't going to stick around. They're not going to leave. They're not going to, invest in other people in the same way. And, we've had both sides. Like it's not an easy thing. I've had really tough battles too, people that I've loved that have left. But at the same token, like I, as a leader, can go to sleep every night and say, I gave those people all that I had, and they know that. Like those people down deep will then stand in the fire. They will work the long hours. We're an advertising group, so Black Fridays, Thanksgivings, you can't imagine these people are here for 20-hour days on Thanksgiving and Friday, and they're having fun. They're enjoying it because they're invested in. So it can become a very different kind of atmosphere too.
Well, it does, beg to differ, as leadership. It's hard to make some of these decisions, and you've made them, going against kind of the bottom line. Like traditionally, we want to hire people that have a certain level of experience and that are able to maybe get a payback as soon as possible. But you're taking 6 to 12 months. Has that, lack of cash flow early on, has that been a stressor in the business, or are you able to weather that?
No, that's the one big blessing I think we've had. I bootstrapped this from the very beginning, so never took any debt, never took any kind of money outside of it. I worked another job for 6 months when I started this, and I didn't leave until I could almost have a year's worth of salary, and then I didn't end up ever hiring my first hire until I had a year's worth of their salary put away so I could take care of their family. And then I got very lucky that one of my right-hand men took a like 80% off of his salary to jump on and be part of this because he thought we could build something different. And so at the very outset, like we built in the principles of being extremely conservative in kind of how we handle our cash flow and how we manage things. And so, yeah, I mean, we probably could have grown even faster, but if we had just done that cash flow and blown it out, but then we wouldn't have the kind of quality that we've been able to build our name on, to work with incredible groups like Disney and just massive organizations across the entire spectrum, because we were so focused on the kind of plotting and the methodical race instead of just blowing it up and just scaling out to the nth degree.
Marketing is one of those industries where I have a lot of insight. I have a lot of clients in this area, but you have put something together that's even more cutting edge than just traditional marketing, bringing in the data science, the artificial intelligence. So when you think about, the kids coming out of school, they're not getting the skills. So you're having to invest in them this much so that they're caught up to where you are as a company. Is that about right?
Yes. And I mean, yes and no. So like one of the advantages that they have is, like for me to go and like basically detox somebody who has been in marketing of all the bad habits that they've learned and try and retrain them on this actually sometimes is harder, because they have an old mindset to what has really been some bad habits that have been built inside the marketing world. And so, those things kind of even themselves out. I will say that most of the people that end up really thriving here don't come from a marketing background or even a marketing education, because there are just so many, check boxes or means to do things. Whereas, some of the smartest folks that end up doing it are based around either high end data side. So they're looking at quant, they're looking at, like one of our guys studied, like he would work on brains and do like pretty crazy experimentation in school, to the other side where it's psychology, and it's understanding how humans think and how humans operate outside of even the marketing space. And like, some of my leaders come from insurance to recruiting to, industries that have like logistics, not even in the marketing space, but they think in that way where, if you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes for a minute and understand how you want to be communicated with for that target customer and who that customer makes up, that really can make all the difference.
Noah just talked about the bad habits that happen so often when we bring in someone who has some, industry experience, and how it's hard to break those habits. Now, I've seen this happen many times before. So you have to ask yourself this one big question in your company. And it can change over time. In the beginning, you may bring in people that have some industry experience, but may not always be the right solution down the road. So the big question that you have to ask yourself is, do you buy leaders or do you build them? Do you go out there and find people who have sort of the experience you want and retrain them in your ways of doing things? Or do you build them from the inside? Now, I've seen this happen and be successful in both ways. I tend to believe that companies are very successful when they have the ability to build the leaders from within. When you have the ability to take someone who is great at what they do and give them the skills to not only be great at what they do, but also lead others through the process and lead the charge of different aspects of the company, that really can be a successful business. Now, it's not easy, but it really is something you have to decide for yourself. Do you buy builders or do you build them? Back to the interview with Noah. Well, when you think about building leaders inside the company, like that's part of the technical skills of actually doing the work. But is there a similar approach when people move into a leadership position for the company?
Yeah, I mean, all of our leaders, so we do kind of take a backwards approach. And I've never known it any other way, but everybody tells me it's different, is that we don't give you a job title that says, here's your leadership and now do it. Everybody here pretty much earns it. So, everybody here is encouraged that there's two main ways to really get ahead. You can either be incredible at what you do and show that your skill on a continued basis is proving to be, above the beyond, or you work yourself out of a job, train somebody else to do your job to display that leadership, and then you'll get that next leadership title. And so most all of our leaders grew up here, in the sense of like they just worked their tails off and showed that they were hard workers, or they, like one of our other leaders, came from another organization that was a client of ours, and so he was almost basically part of the family, but he knew all the steps that he had to go through as he watched us do it. So it's very much the same way. I'll keep investing in them. I'll keep giving them the tools if they want them. And if they take them and want to run with them, they very easily can work themselves into leadership positions. Anybody here can. It doesn't matter age, qualifications, resume, whatever it might be. Anybody can earn it, versus just be given it.
Noah, what inside the culture makes all this possible for you to continue to grow so fast? What comes to mind first?
I really do think it is that level of respect. Everybody here is built around, so whenever I go to hire somebody, I look at four things. I look at intelligence, energy, integrity, and culture. Culture is just one that, like, you have to kind of check off the box. Are they going to fit in? Are they going to be able to work with the other folks that are here? You have to have, a basic amount of intelligence to do this. You have to really want it. So I'm kind of going reverse order. You have to really want it and be willing to work after it. And then most of all, you have to have a high level of integrity. And so, everybody, this is a culture of respect. And so they know that if they do hard work, they'll be rewarded for it. At the same time, they get to kind of craft and create their own destiny out of it. And they know their coworkers are all the same way. So it's not like other people are trying to, get around or take somebody else's job or sneak in and do it. It's very much a society of like, hey, if we work hard, we'll be rewarded, and we'll keep moving up. And that is shown by how we treat our clients, how we treat our coworkers, etc.
What do you do inside the hiring process that allows you to find those intelligent, energy, high integrity, and a right culture fit?
I was lucky that one of my early core leaders that I found came from a strong background in recruiting and was going to try something else and actually move into the marketing element. And so she applied and when she did, I said, you know what, I see all this experience here on recruiting. Would you actually mind helping me with that? Because we need to hire, we need to find really good people. So, first and foremost is I found a really good leader that could help me with that. And then secondly, the process that we then put into place, everybody goes through an initial screen and then goes through multi-steps of interviews, but it really isn't the kind of questions that we ask. I think, I'm not going to give away the secret sauce, but they're questions that are kind of outside of the ballpark, and they're not those like funny agency questions or funny like Google type of questions where you get thrown for a loop, but they're actually deep, honest questions about that you have. It's pretty obvious if you're not being authentic in your answer, or if it's something that's been staged. And we even measure, like, we'll ask the same questions multiple times throughout the process, and when the answers change, that they're not actually sincere about what they're saying. So we try and measure those things, and we found a level of the kind of questions that are going to tell us a lot about who that person is as an individual, more so than their skill sets in any way, which is the intangibles that make the big difference.
Now, Noah just talked about the questions inside of the interview process and how important they are to get to the heart of who that person is. He said about asking deep questions, and I really want you to think about your process and the questions that you're asking within your team. How deep are you going? Are you staying at this skill level? Can you do this work? Have you done it before? What's your background? Tell us about some of your successes. That's really high level. When you want to really understand how someone thinks, how they operate, you want to make sure you're getting into the deep aspects of how they see the world. And that goes beyond the skills. That goes into the culture fit. That goes into really what you're looking to create and create around the team together. Now, those questions are only going to be done when you intentionally think about what aligns to the values of your company. I work with a lot of companies to help them understand this process because they want to hire the best employees. They want to make sure that they're not hiring people who are not a good fit for the culture. So you want to have questions that are really aligned to understanding how that person is aligned with your values before they actually come in the door, because it's much easier to find someone that has great values and teach them the right skills than it is to teach them the values like integrity and honesty and value creation or ownership. Whatever your values may be, you want to make sure you have the right questions in the interview process. And this is something I help companies with all the time. So if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me. Now back to the interview with Noah. As we begin to wrap this up, I want to give you another chance to talk about being counterintuitive inside your leadership and how that's added to growth. So we talked about one area was this really intense investment into someone 6 to 12 months before they are really out there with clients. Is there anything else that you've done that's kind of counterintuitive like that?
Yeah, and this one actually, when you said that, it actually gave me another idea. So this one might come from left field for you. But, I mentioned that our mission here is success means putting other people's needs above your own. And so, one of my goals is to be the most successful CEO that I can and leave that lasting legacy. And so if you balance the idea of how much investment that I put into people, so when I think about their tenure here, I have had to let go of a number of folks. And if you think about putting other people's needs above our own, it's very easy to think about, okay, well, and I try to have a deep investment into every individual. Obviously I can't, it's a large organization, but I really want to. And so you get to know their families or their kids or what they care about or who they love or where they're at in life. And so letting go of them doesn't feel like putting their needs above their own, but it wasn't really until, you really had to stop and think about what is best for them. And what is best for their long-term success. And if it becomes pretty obvious that, while we could use their help for a while, a year from now, it's not going to work out. It means having to make a tough choice. And from a company perspective, having to lose quite a bit of an investment because you train somebody for 6 months and you went through all the recruiting efforts and like that leader's great about understanding like what did that actually cost the organization to bring that hire on. And so if you're 60, 70, $80,000 into a person and but it still isn't, it's not going to work out, giving them the opportunity to find a real career path for themselves is doing right by them. And really, honestly, it does better by the rest of the team here because they know that, they're not having to make up for somebody else's lack of, or they're on equal footing, or they're not having to be here late nights trying to fix something else somebody broke. And so it's really a balance between really overly investing, but then also trying to do right by the people long term and help them set up their careers for the most amount of success, even if that means making a hard choice they don't like at that point in time.
I'm curious with this. You don't hear many leaders talk about putting others first. I know it's like this servant leadership kind of thing, but when you describe how you're investing in people and maybe even letting them go because it's not the right fit, where did you learn all this from within your professional career?
It actually wasn't from a professional career. It was from my grandfather. So he was an entrepreneur at the age of 16, started a company out of his garage because he wanted to get married and his parents wouldn't let him. And so he started multiple businesses and sold multiple businesses. I don't plan on going that kind of route, but he was a serial entrepreneur. But the thing about him was, when I was a kid, I was like 10-year-old, all of my cousins and stuff, they'd be playing out at a pool or at the lake. And I would just be sitting there listening to his stories about business. And, when I ended up giving a eulogy at his funeral a couple of years ago, and it was a venue that could maybe seat 300 folks. And I think we maybe had, I don't know, it could be over exaggerating, but 600, 700, 800 people come through that day. And they would just tell me story after story of, he was a great leader. It wasn't because he was, the best at this or the best at this, but that it was really about, he always put the people first at his organization. And I had seen that growing up too, but that was remarkable to me. And that was the cornerstone of what I felt like his success came from. So, that was a nugget I could take from him and have his legacy live on in what happens inside of this organization.
I've always thought that caring is such an important part of leadership, and I've had people debate me on that, but I think it's really a cool story that you shared that you've gotten from your grandfather.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I really appreciate you being here on the podcast to talk about your journey of leadership. Noah, any parting words?
No, I really appreciate you too. I'm glad to be here. It was a privilege to get to spend some time with you, and look forward to continuing to listen to all the good stuff that you put out.
All right, fantastic. Well, we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
What a fantastic interview. I love the story at the end where he talks about where it came from. Watching his grandfather, watching how people responded to him and all the stories he had at his grandfather's funeral. Now, a lot of people, think about the legacy they're going to live. And I really am just honored to have someone like Noah share his insights about leadership and investing in people for today's show. It really is exciting to be able to share these kinds of messages and stories with you to be able to help you be better leaders, help you through the defining moments of your leadership. So without further ado, I really love the fact that you are here and sharing these messages out there. So thank you so much. And if you can think of any one specific person that wants to be a better leader and activate growth within their team, then make sure you refer them to growthinktank.com. As always, lead with courage, and I'll see you next time.